Well, hello everyone. I'm Sam Valenti, and today I have the absolute pleasure of talking with an amazing musician, educator, podcast host. There is not a whole lot that this person cannot do. From Nu Shooz, it is the one and only Valerie Day. Valerie, it is truly an honor to be talking with you today.
Oh, thank you, Sam. It's good to be with you.
Yes, of course. Like I said, it's a real honor to have this chance to interview you. And it's cool because you conduct a lot of interviews yourself these days on your podcast. We'll get into that a little later on. But speaking of honors, I was reading this that Nu Shooz is featured on this beautiful mural in Portland that celebrates the great music that has come out of the city. What does that mean to you to be a part of that?
It's a wonderful reminder of how supportive Portland audiences and the music community have been throughout our career. We would not have had a career weren't it for many of those folks that the ones that got us on the radio locally, the ones that we played with all those years, the other bands, our manager. I mean, there's so much that is actually behind that mural, and to be up there with all the other musicians that we either performed with or they set the stage for what we were to do. It's wonderful, total honor.
Not everyone can be honored by their hometown. So, that is certainly something to be proud of. Now, of course, talking about New Shoes, many people know about the big hits, right? Like I Can't Wait, Point of No Return, those amazing classics from off of Poolside. But I wanted to tell you that I really enjoy the 2016 album Bagtown. I just love it. There's funk, soul, jazz on this record. Such a fun album to listen to. I gotta ask, how did that album come to be? And what was the recording process like?
I love that album too, and thank you for listening to it. And I'm glad you like it as well. That album came about because John and I, after a 20-year break from Nu Shooz, were enticed back to doing gigs. And we went on these 80s tours where, there's like 10 different 80s bands and it's one big show. But it was just John and myself going out there and doing the hits only. And after we did that for a few months, we got really lonely for our band. And for having, because we always had big bands from 12-piece horns, 12-piece band with horns to a 6-piece band, I think was the smallest we ever were. So we decided it's time. It's time to see who of the 50 different people who'd played with us over the years wanted to come back and do it again. And so we put a band together and we played a couple gigs. And then it was like, well, we need some new music to play because we wanted to only do originals. Well, pretty much. We did a few covers, but we wanted some new originals to do. So John went out in our backyard studio and spent a couple months kind of dinking around. He wasn't really coming up with any music. It turns out he was going and getting hamburgers every day at this little restaurant down the street and would come back with a little paper bag. And so he had this huge collection of paper bags. And one day he just kind of started playing around and making faces on them. And pretty soon he had all these bag puppets hanging out with him in the studio. And then he looked around and went, they need a theme song. They need these bags need a theme song. So that's when he wrote Bagtown, and that's how the whole record started, which I think is so, well, first of all, it's emblematic of John and that he really knows how to play. And I think play is so important for creativity that you can go into the studio and have this idea that this is what I'm going to do and this is how it's going to go. And if you don't allow for that play to infuse your work, creativity kind of stays out the door, like hangs out, waiting for you to like really get a little looser with it. So anyway, that's Bagtown.
The fact that the album came to be from Bag Puppets, that's incredible. Wow,
I
that's
know,
amazing.
right? I've never heard that particular story before when people talk about their records. But yeah, Puppets is where it started.
Wow, wow, that is awesome, and something that's just really great about Bagtown as an album is not only are you and John just amazing as always, but there are so many other talented musicians involved with the record. What was it like getting to collaborate with so many different people on that album?
First of all, these were the people we asked to do it were the people that we missed the most. They're not only great players, but they're wonderful humans to hang out with. And I think that's something that we didn't realize when we were younger, is how important the ride is. You want to be around people in your band or in your creative endeavor that you'd actually want to get like stuck in a traffic jam with, without food or water and actually still have a good time. You know, like, those are the people you wanna be with. So our favorite backup singers, we asked to be on the record, Margaret Lynn and Tracy Harris and Haley Horsfall, and then we had a couple, wonderful horn players, trumpeter Paul Mazzio and saxophonist Tim Jensen, our drummer, Johnny Riley, who just lays down. I mean, he went in to record Bagtown and did the whole thing in one day. And that's how he wanted to do it. Hardly any retakes either. He had really worked the stuff before he came in. And then one of our favorite people in the world who just passed away sadly in December, Gary Fontaine, who was our bass player when we were on the road way back in the early 80s for our big 1986 tour. So it was remarkable to be with them again and rehearse. And actually, the rehearsals were probably more fun than the gigs in some ways.
Yeah, yes, for sure. Now, I do want to bring up some specific songs off that album. I really love Soul Cushion, has that great funky sound, great vocals, and of course, John's awesome guitar solo, which is just fire. Love it. And then Way Outside, that's another favorite of mine. And I'm curious, do you have any particular favorites off of Backtown?
I love both of those. But I like all the songs for different reasons. I think the main objective for the record, I mean, it came out of the bags, but once they were there and John had written their theme song, it was like, all right, we need some music that's fun to play live, so that people want to get up and dance to it. Um, I love Soul Cushion. Uh, Forgetting all the other tunes on the record now because I have to always look at our album covers and see what songs are there. But they were just fun to play live, and that was the main objective. And I think we achieved it.
Yes, absolutely. And you mentioned playing live and doing the shows and stuff and what's interesting is that you guys had a pretty long hiatus from doing concerts. So when you were able to you guys are finally able to get back on stage after that long hiatus, I have to ask, what was that like? What was the feeling like, getting back on stage?
It was I'll never forget it actually because the first gig that we did was in a little town called McMinnville, Oregon, south of Portland, and it was for this funky hometown kind of festival called Drag in the Gut. And it was a we we actually it was a kind of a small stage, and it was the perfect setting for our first gig, for that one where you're like, not sure how this is going to work. Here we go. But once we got on stage, I looked over at Gary, who was in the same place on this small stage that he'd been on the big ones um, all those years ago in the 80s. And we both had this eye locking moment where it was like, hey, look where we are. We're doing it again together. And it was just beautiful. And we even talked about it after the show. It was like, were you thinking what I was thinking right then? Yes, I was. It was just remarkable. So I'm so glad we got to do it again. It was the perfect moment in the perfect decade for us to do that.
Yes, for sure. And what's interesting is I was actually looking on YouTube and I was able to find a video of what I believe was what was like your last concert, before that hiatus. And I think if I'm remembering it correctly, this was like it must have been like 1990. And I think it was at the convention center. It's filmed on like a camcorder, I think. And it's of you guys doing Point of No Return. And when I found that online, I was like, wow, like that looks amazing, but at the time, did you have guys have any, feeling like, oh, this is going to be our last show for this many years? Was there any thoughts there, or did that just kind of come out of nowhere?
First of all, way to go on doing your homework, Sam. That's that's really great that you found that. That was that did turn out to be our last full band gig, and we had no idea that was the case. And like so many things in life, you finally kind of figure things out and get things to a place where you really feel like you're showing like your best foot forward, like we really worked hard on that show. It was the opening of the convention center. And I think it was 1991, maybe I want to say. But anyway, yeah, we had all kinds of cool dance moves. We we had an amazing sound system. Everything worked really well. Um, and it didn't turn out to be our very last gig, but the last gig we did was, I think, the spring after that. And it was just with our backup singers. And so it was a track date. So we were singing over the tracks, and I was playing percussion and stuff. And it was at the Portland International Raceway. And right after we got off the stage on that gig, which the radio station had asked us to do, and we were doing in preparation for this record that we've been working on for 4 years that was about to come out, we thought, we got off stage and the representative from our record company was there, and we said hi to him, and oh, we're so excited for our record to come out. And he got this kind of weird look on his face, like, I didn't see your record on the schedule. And that's how we found out that we'd been dropped from Atlantic. So it was it was a weird moment to and it was the culmination of 14 years of Nu Shooz, working towards getting a record deal for the first 7 years, then having a record deal for 7 years, making 3 records, working for 4 on the last one that we made, and then having it not come out, which was heartbreaking because we really, but it also, we decided rather than just stay heartbroken, let's do some other kinds of music. Let's do the other things in life that make us happy and feel fulfilled. So that's when we decided to start a family, and Nu Shooz was put to bed forever, so we thought. But of course, never say never.
Yeah, yes, exactly. Never say never, and I'm so glad that you guys did come back, and you guys, have just like I said, just in recent years, you guys have put out, honestly, what I think is some of your best output, honestly. But
Thank you.
I do
Very
have to
kind.
ask, um, are we gonna get another Nu Shooz album possibly in the near future?
Well, that was the other thing. So we definitely wanted to make a record people could have fun dancing to, and we could have fun playing live. And we both said, this is it. This is our last one, because we've got the band together right now, and we don't know what's going to happen in the future. And as it turns out, we kept doing gigs, and so we did those 80 shows, just John and I, for about 7 years. And about 5 of those years we were doing the band. And right around 2019, right before the pandemic hit, we had decided 2020 was going to be our last year. and then the pandemic happened, and we all know what that did to the music industry. So we got semi-retired pretty quick because of that. But actually, for us, the timing, unlike for so many people, the timing for us was good.
That whole year was crazy, right? 2020. My gosh,
Really hard,
what a
really hard.
year.
I know. So anyway, to answer your question, no, no more Nu Shooz music. Though, we shouldn't say never because we've said that before and it didn't work out. So I don't know, but I don't think so. We're on to other things.
Well, hey, I'll say this. Bagtown is a pretty high note to go out on. So I would say
Thank you.
that's
Thank
a
you.
I would say if that is the definitive end, it's a pretty amazing one. So now I want to get into your teaching stuff because in addition to being a great musician and singer, you've spent many years as a voice teacher. So I'm curious, how did you first get into doing that?
Well, after that, after we got dropped from Atlantic, we had to figure out what to do. So for me, I was like, geez. I could go back to waiting tables, or, rock star waiting tables. There must be something in between. So I went to my voice teacher, who I really respected and had saved my voice early in my career, right in time for us to get a record deal. I got nodules in 1985, or 84, when our lead singer at the time started missing gigs, and I ended up taking over for him. I was a backup singer and percussionist before that. And so I found this amazing voice teacher, after many tries, who really knew the physiology of the voice. And so I'd been studying with him for about 7 years, I guess. And so I went to him and said, I'd really like to learn how to teach. I'd like to be able to take the knowledge that you've given me that made it possible for me to do all these gigs, sing when I was sick, never miss a date, or a recording session, and be able to pass that in info and knowledge on to other singers. And he said, sure. And I thought because I've been taking lessons for so long that it would be easy. Like, I just learn how to teach and that would be it. But it turns out, um, there's a real art to teaching. And I did it for 20 years and I got better at it, I have to say. But I started out having nightmares that I was in an operating theater with a scalpel in my hand about to slice somebody open, and then realized at the last second, oh my God, I've not been to medical school. What am I doing? I don't know how to do this. So it was a big learning experience for me, and one that I really cherish because I actually got to be a better singer. I learned so much from all my students. It was a really very impactful and wonderful time in my life.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And I also read that you actually taught at Portland State for a while, home of the Vikings. What
Yes,
what was that
yes.
experience like?
It was great. I taught one-on-one in my home studio before that. And then a friend of mine asked me, Daryl Grant, he's a wonderful pianist and professor there. We'd worked together on something called Brain Chemistry for Lovers, a show about neurochemistry and the brain and love, and using songs to show you what those different brain chemicals can do to your love life. Anyway, so Daryl asked me if I would want to teach at Portland State, and I was very nervous because I'd never taught in front of a larger group of people. I'd never taught a whole class before, and I'm kind of introverted, so like public speaking and that kind of thing, not my forte. But I have to say, brilliant students. Again, I learned a ton and I had a great time doing it.
And now today, what's great is that you still have the Living a Vocal Life, the online courses. And as it's mentioned on your website, completely free of charge. So what was the process like developing those online courses?
Well, uh, at about the same time that we decided we weren't going to perform live anymore, I thought, well, what can I replace that income with? Um, and so I thought, well, that course that I taught at Portland State called the Contemporary Vocalist would make a great online course. And so I just started writing material for it and writing scripts and then videotaping those and then editing the videos. And pretty soon I had most of the course. The pandemic kind of put things on hold for a second and we moved and all this life stuff happened. So I'm still working on the material, but I just figured, and now it's free, of course, because we are in a different phase. We're actually retired and I can afford to give it away for free. So that's a lovely thing. And I just didn't want anybody to not be able to access the material, because what it's about is all it's the answer to all the conversations I had with the singers who came through my studio for 20 years about their struggles outside of learning to sing. So it starts with how your body works when you're a singer, what you have to do for breathing support and all those things, which is of course a part of singing. But then how do you take care of your body, and what do you do when you get sick, and how do you find a teacher? And then it moves into your relationship with your songs and how to choose songs, how to choose the keys that you sing in, how to work with other people once you're ready to go into rehearsal. How do you ask the drummer to be quieter? Stuff like that. Anyway, it just goes through all of the things that you need to know in order to step on the stage and perform your best. So the most recent, the lesson that I'm working on, or just finished actually, is about microphones and how to choose a great microphone for your voice. And that's something that I wish I had known, because the microphone I was singing on in the early days of Nu Shooz was a Shure SM58. And for my voice, I had to push too hard to make this microphone work. I had to try to force my sound, and it made it that, and some bad monitor mixing, and a really loud band behind me made it so that I was in a perfect position to get nodules. And once I traded out that microphone, got some good lessons, learned how to uh, get the frequencies tuned right in my monitors, my voice my voice did a lot better, and I was able to sing at my best. So
Our voices are just they're so important, and we really have to take care of them. And I'll fully admit that I probably need to do a better job of taking care of my voice and stop screaming all the time at the sports events here at ASU, because unfortunately I tend to cheer a lot and probably scream my lungs out. But I think I think it's really great what you're doing, because like I said, voices are they're very important.
it's extremely important and singers, most singers do things outside of actually performing that can be difficult on the voice. For instance, school teachers, trying to get children's attention, they're always yelling. Cheerleaders have a hard time sometimes with singing because they're yelling also at the games. Even therapists or counselors, they're trying to create a intimate kind of sound with their clients, so they talk down in the lower part of their voice, which is a place where there's more air coming through the vocal cords, and they start to rub, and then you start getting vocal fry, and that sounds really bad. And so talking where your voice is clean is really important, and learning how to pitch your voice up to in a place where it's going to be healthy, so that when you do go out and scream, because you get excited, you have to go out and scream, then you can repair your voice after you've done something that's damaged it. That's the key. Can you get your voice back to a place every day with exercises that makes it so that you know that it's safe to sing, because you can make a clean sound. Does that
Ye
make sense?
Oh, yes, absolutely it does. We have a basketball game happening tonight at our school, so so I think I might have to log on and maybe start some of these exercises just
There you go.
later tonight. So
You can go to the one that's called How to Save Your Voice. I think it's called How to Save Your Voice for no, How to Talk so you can save your voice for singing. That's the one.
yeah, okay, for sure. I will jot that down and I will probably need that later tonight. So definitely should come in handy.
Oh,
Um,
and there's something called the siren that's a kind of a goofy sounding thing, but it really makes your it's like a nice stretch for your voice. So whether you're talking or speaking, it's a good one too. So look for that. It's right in the same area of the course.
Or hey, fantastic. Hey, thank you for that. I'll definitely need that. Speaking of living a vocal life, we have to talk about the awesome podcast that you do. Uh,
Oh,
so I'm curious, how did the podcast come to be? Where did the idea come from? And for you, what has been the most enriching part of getting to talk with these various musicians and hearing their stories?
good question. Thank you for asking. The podcast came about because as I was writing the material for the course, I kept feeling like, I don't know everything, but I know a lot of singers, and I'd love to know what they think about this subject. And so I thought, maybe it would be fun and also enlightening to have them on a podcast. So that's how Living a Vocal Life was born. I just started with the people that I knew and have expanded from there. And the thing that I love about the podcast is each episode takes many, many, many hours to produce, as I know you know when you're doing these things. Um, so you get to spend time with a person and research their story and listen to their music. And then when I'm doing the editing for the podcast, get to listen to the stories in a way that makes you feel like you even know the person better. And then when you get to actually talk with them in person or, just um, hang out after you've done the call or whatever, I just feel like I keep making new friends. It's a wonderful thing. And being a singer is not an easy gig. As my last guest, who her episode is almost done, said, people always think this is a fun job, and I always think you must not know very many singers because there's a lot to it, and some of it's physical, some of it's psychological. But to communicate your best, oh, there's just some marvelous communicators out there and some marvelous voices, and I feel so lucky to be able to capture their stories and tell them to a wider audience.
I think what's so fun about getting to like do stuff like making a podcast it's not just doing the interview itself, like you mentioned. It's researching, it's doing editing, and then it's like listening back to it and really kind of getting to really immerse yourself in what you're doing. And I'll tell you from experience, and I'm sure as of course, as you know, it's a very fun and rewarding experience to do stuff like that.
It is. It is. You're doing a wonderful job, by the way. I wanted to tell you.
Thank you so much, Valerie. I mean, gosh, coming from you, that really does mean a lot. Seriously, thank you so much. But yeah, like I said, you do a great job, with the show and everything, and you do a great job of listening and letting the people, tell their stories, who, because I do feel like sometimes sometimes I'll listen to a show and then, the interviewer will kind of maybe cut the person off or something like that. And you do just such a great job of letting things breathe, asking the right questions. Of course, you do great research. And I just wanted to commend you on that. I think you do
Aw,
such an
that's
amazing
really
job.
kind. Thank you. Thank you, Sam. You've done your homework and I really appreciate it. I think at some point, I want to do a blog post or maybe a mini lesson on how to give good interview. Because having been on both sides of the mic, as the interviewer and as the interviewee. I think it's also important for singers who are going to be interviewed to kind of have a sense of maybe some pointers that they could, some things they could focus on, like doing their own research about the show that they're going to be on, who the audience is, a little bit about the interviewer and why they're doing what they're doing. It just kind of gives you a different lens to look through so that when you are answering the questions, you can speak to the audience that's listening. And so that's been on the back burner, but I'm thinking, do you have any pointers that you would give to people who are going to be interviewed that would make your job easier?
I usually like it when of course, like yourself, when the person just kind of goes into detail and stuff about different stories and just kind of gives me kind of time to just really soak things in and listen. Because then
Mm-hmm.
what's great, and I think, good interviewers do this, is when they're able to ask, a question, the person gives an answer, but then you can follow up with different questions following the answer. And
Yes.
sometimes that's when you get even better answers and stuff. So I would definitely
Yes.
say something along those lines.
Uh-huh. Absolutely. That's like the for me when I'm listening to podcasts myself, because of course, like you, you're probably listening to radio and podcasts all the time just to see how different people do the interviews. And always I'm amazed at some of the follow-up questions that people ask. And that's when I can tell, oh, that person, they really know what they're doing. They've done this for a while. Because you have to be able to listen, but also direct the interview a little bit. You know what I mean? And keep things on track. But if you're too busy doing that, then you miss opportunities that come by. I'm still learning how to do it, by the way. I mean, I really am. I just feel like every interview I learn so much and it makes me want to do more. I wish I had more time to do that part, but still working on the course. So I'm trying to focus.
Last question here, and I always love, ending off kind of my interviews, with this question, especially with musicians that I talk with. What is the biggest piece of advice that you have for anyone who wants to get into music?
Mm. There are so many. It of course depends on the person who's asking. Um, but I think for most of the singers that I've taught and that I've had the pleasure of talking with on the podcast, I think they would say, um, well, let's put it this way. I think it's really important to love what you're doing, no matter what the outcome. People will often ask, what would you do if you could not fail? That's a great question. You know, that's not a bad thing to ask because what it's asking you is to imagine all the things you would need in order to do something and do it well and succeed. And it's good to be able to imagine that. But what the other side of that question is, what would you do if you knew that you would fail, and would you do it anyway? And I think if you can say to yourself, I have to do this for me. So much so that even if I fail, there's going to be a gift in there because I need to express myself. And of course, for musicians, sharing whatever you express is part of it. But you don't know if people are going to like what you do or if it's going to be something that is well received because, and you can make money off of it. Sometimes asking your art to make your living is for you is not the right thing to do. You know, John, my husband and partner in crime, he says, I just tell people I like to surf. I like to get on the board every day. It doesn't matter what the waves are like. Of course, if they're big, that's exciting, but I just go out there. I just go out there every day and keep up my skills and wait to catch a wave. And I think that's a really wonderful metaphor for doing what you love. You know, if you have to do it, if you enjoy it, no matter what the rewards are, that's key, because everything will fail. I mean, you know, we spent many years working hard to get to a certain place, and then we didn't enjoy it when we got there because we were worried that we were going to lose it. And of course that we did, because that's what happens. Life is an ebb and flow. You succeed and then you fail, and then you succeed and then you fail on a different scale, of course, all the time. But I just I wish I'd been able to have more fun when it was a good wave. So that's what I would say to my younger self too.
Something that I've always, that I've always thought is that if you have a passion for something, just go for it. And that's something that's actually something that my mom has always told me. Like she's always told me, hey, if you want to go do something, just go for it. You never know what can happen, right? So
You're going to learn something, and if you don't do it, that's you'll never know, you know? And I love it that your mom has encouraged you to do that. What a wonderful mom.
I'm very, very lucky to have my mom. She is I do not know where I would be without her. She's she's pretty amazing. So
She wants you to be yourself and encourages you to do what you love. That's pretty special.
what else can I say other than thank you so much for letting me have this opportunity to talk with you today. Like I said at the top of this, just truly, truly an honor.
Oh, well, thank you. And I really enjoyed, excuse me, I really enjoyed being with you today. And thank you, Sam, for being such a good listener and doing your homework, doing your research on the interview, and for having me on today.